let's write a function called collapseWhiteSpace. So in collapseWhiteSpace, we're given a string, kind of like this one. So this is A, tab, 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 B, enter, enter, C. And over here, we see a series of whitespace, or a run of whitespace. And we want to turn this entire run into just one singular space, as we see here, A space B. Over here, we have another whitespace run, and we want to turn these two characters of whitespace that are next to each other into just one space, such that we return A space B space C. It also notes twice, actually, that we should not use s.replace in this solution. So let's go through an example. So we have this long string where it's basically A, and then a bunch of white space until we hit B, C, and then a bunch more white space until we hit D, and then it ends in some white space. So let's actually run through this and just basically solve this as if we are a computer, or actually like as we're thinking as if we're a computer. So if I'm running through this right now, I'm not currently in whitespace, right? So A is a character. So I want to say in whitespace, let's actually create the variable called in whitespace, and this is going to be false, right? Because A is not whitespace. And also, we're going to be building up a result string, and we're going to be adding that as we go. So we go to A, so we start with A, I'm sorry, and we add A to this result string. Then I see some whitespace. So in whitespace is false, but I see some whitespace. So I want to make that true. Then I'm swimming in the white space, just a bunch of white space. So I continue on and I don't do anything until I see that B is not white space. B is actually just a character, right? It's not a space, an enter, or a tab. So I have to change this to false. So I'm no longer in white space. But I also want to add a space and a B. So I basically just collapsed all this white space down to just be one space, and then I added that B right afterwards. So I'm continuing on. I just saw B. Now I see C. In whitespace is false, so I add a C to it right afterwards. I see a space after that, so I make this true, and I continue on until I see something that is not whitespace right here. Like I did before, I make this false. I add a space and then a D, and then I continue on. After that, I see a space, so I make this true, and this should end in a space. So let's put that into code. So I started out, I had two variables. So in whitespace, and that equaled false to start, and our result, which is the empty string. So let's start by looping through this string. So for C in S. This should loop through every single character so that C will equal every character like consecutively. So we basically had a bunch of different conditions. So in the first thing, the first thing that we did was, like in the first condition, which we changed something, we had seen A, and then we saw whitespace. So in whitespace was false. So if not in whitespace, so if whitespace is false, and we see whitespace, so C dot is space. So that's this condition right here. So not in whitespace. So in whitespace was false. That's true. And C is whitespace. Then we want to make in whitespace equal to true. So we just entered a whitespace run. And we continue. So the next condition is if in whitespace is true and C is whitespace. In that condition, though, we don't want to do anything, so we don't actually need to write that. The next condition is if I'm in whitespace, so in this whitespace run, and I see something that is not whitespace. So we can write that condition by doing elif in whitespace and not C.isSpace. So if C is anything but whitespace, which is this condition right here when we go from this space to this B. In that condition, what we wanted to do was first, we said in whitespace now equals false again. Because again, we left this space run and we entered this other run, which is not spaces. So we have to say we're no longer in whitespace. After that, we say result plus equals, and then we added a space. After that, we added this B here. We added this B. And so that is basically the next character, which is C. which we're denoting here as the variable c. That is the next condition. The last condition is actually right here. So we were not in whitespace, right? We just set that to false. So we say elif not in whitespace, and C is not whitespace. So and not C dot is space. In that condition, all we did was result plus equals C. After that, we were done, so we returned result. So let's actually run this. So we run it, and we want to test it with this test function, and we see that it fails. And it actually fails on the condition that we did. I'm not sure why this failed, so I'm actually going to run this case right here. So okay, I see that this does A space BC space D. But we need another space here at the end, as we see. We don't have it. And that's because we didn't, like, there's basically another edge case where this ends in spaces. So if we get to the very end of the function and in whitespace is true, right? So if we get to the end of the string and we are currently in whitespace, then we need to do a special condition for that. We want to add a space there. So if in whitespace at the end of this loop, then we do result plus equals space. We run it, we test it, and it works. That was actually that function, but if we write the test case, if we run the test case, it works.